Good evening, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First, let me join all of you to congratulate Basharun Momodu on this special occasion. Well, I know that there will be time for a lot of tributes, but the Daily Momodu that we all know is an icon of the journalism profession in Nigeria. He's also proven to be a very successful entrepreneur, and he's an intellectual of the very first rank, now he's even currently a visiting scholar at the University of Oxford. He's an author, he's a writer that we all love to read. I want to congratulate you, Bobby. Many happy returns. As they say in Yoruba, But quickly, the assignment I've been given is to moderate this interactive session with His Excellency President Mahama. I consider it a very great privilege. President Mahama is someone that I've been seeing, from a distance. In those days when he used to visit my boss at the villa, that's President Goodluck Jonathan. But this evening, we'll have the privilege of interacting with one of Africa's political leaders, a shining star. I know he has been introduced earlier, but I would like to draw attention to a few things about President Mahama. He became President of the Republic of Ghana on 24th July 2012, following the death of President John Abati'S. And he will later, of course, stand for election and win election himself. And he was in office from 24th July 2012 till 7th January 2017, 7th January 2017, which was inauguration day. In that 2012 election, he won the election with 50.70% and got the majority in all the administrative regions. But in 2016, the New Patriotic Party won, and he lost that election, but he still scored 44.4% of the votes. Now, President Mahama is running again, and his campaign, you must have seen it, JD Mahama for 2020. And a lot of people are looking forward to that because he has been very critical of the administration that is in office at the moment. And he's a very experienced and distinguished politician. He first started as a member of parliament, and he was a member of parliament from about 1996 to 2009. Then he subsequently became Deputy Minister of Communications. Later he became Minister of Communications. Then he became Vice President in 2009. Then he became President of Ghana. He is the only Ghanaian head of state who has held all these positions, from parliament to the presidency. President Mahama was born on 29 November 1958, making him the first head of state of Ghana born after independence to be president of that country. President Mahama completed his secondary school education at Achimota College. He later did A-levels at Ghana Secondary School. Then he proceeded to the University of Ghana, where he obtained a degree in history in 1981, and communication studies, a diploma in communication studies in 1986. Then he proceeded to the Institute of Social Science, Moscow, in Russia, where he obtained another degree in 1988 in social psychology. President Mahama is one of the eminent persons, UN eminent persons, on social development goals. He was co-chair of the Social Development Goals Advocates Group. He has been honored all over the world with honorary degrees, with chieftaincy degrees, with chieftaincy titles, and he is a friend of Nigeria. He's also an author. His book, My First Coup d'etat, and other stories of the lost decades of Africa is a very well received book. President Mahama is also a farmer. He's also an advocate for climate change, the environment, for the environment, and he's above all a grandfather. He became a grandfather in February, and so when you go to his Twitter handle as JD Mahama, you see some people referring to President Mahama as Grandpa John. Your Excellency, it's good to have you here. And thank you very much for honoring our friend and our brother, Bashoru Delimomo.
Thank you. But how do you remember all that?
Well, Mr. President, I would like to start with the 2020 campaign. I mean, you've been everything. From member of parliament, minister, everything. You've even been in the Pan-African Parliament. Why do you want to come back in 2020 as president? Is it just to prove a point?
Well, I think that God prepares everybody for what He sent you into this world to do. And so He gives you the talent and abilities to be able to fulfill your mission on earth. And I think that God, in a way, directed my life to be of service to my country and to my continent and to the world. And so as long as I have energy and strength in my body, I will never deny my country my services. And so I'll always put my talents at the service of my country. I served with distinction. I gave my best. And my countrymen will decide. And as long as I have breath in me, I'll never deny my country and my continent my services, never. And so my party called on me to stand again. And I picked up my nominations forms, I filled them, I submitted them, and I won the presidential primary by 95.24% against 6 other contestants. And so the rest is up to Ghana to decide. My track record is there. The new government has come. It's been there for 2.5 years. Everybody is watching, if they can fulfill the very lofty heavenly promises that they made. And in 2020 December, Ghanaians will make a decision.
Mr. President, you've been very critical of your successor, President Nana Akufo-Addo. Is it a convention that former presidents criticize their successors? Because I follow you on Twitter and I see you always criticizing him.
Well, now I'm the leader of the largest opposition party, and so it is my duty to keep the government in power on its toes. And so that is my responsibility to do. And so if you see me making issue out of policy, then it is to take up the government on the policy issues that they are undertaken. And there are some of these major policy issues for which we need to keep the government on its toes. And so if you see me raising those issues, it's because I've been in the government before. I know what it takes, I know how it is to implement policy. And it's part of my duty as the leader of the biggest opposition party to point out where I think the government is going wrong. And there are many things that I think that government needs to be guided in order that it does the right thing. For instance, there's a policy on free senior high school education. The Constitution says that this free senior high school should be instituted progressively. That is because the free senior high school must go hand in hand with infrastructure expansion. It must go hand in hand with the resources to ensure that quality is not compromised. Unfortunately, because of political expediency, a new government comes and says it wants to implement it in 3 years without the adequate infrastructure. And so what we're seeing is there is a huge, influx into the secondary level without the commensurate infrastructure to go with it. So children are sleeping outside. There are no dormitories, there are no classrooms, there are no dining halls. they don't even have enough teachers. And so because of the numbers, they're having to do a double track. And so some children have to stay at home for 3 months. And parents are complaining. I mean, there are young girls who should be in school who are at home. And parents have to go to work and leave these young children to their own devices. In some places you hear reports of teenage pregnancies and things because the children are not in school. Because government is having to implement a double track. And so they have a gold track, a green track, and so you go to school and you stay at home. Then when they come, you go home and they come to school. And so we need to continue to keep the government on its toes in order that policy implementation is done well in the interest of the Ghanaian people. And that's my duty.
Yes, Mr. President, you were the SIA Business School recently, and you touched on this issue of infrastructure. Yes, it's not only in Ghana that we have infrastructure deficit. We have in other parts of Africa too. But what do you think can be done in real terms to address this? And also to address what is popularly known in Nigeria as stomach infrastructure. You know, because the physical infrastructure is one side of it. Stomach infrastructure is another side of it.
If you ask me, I'll say there are two critical things that you need to develop a nation. One is education, two is infrastructure. These are two critical things that have made countries that we consider developed today to be able to achieve the status that they have. And so, when it comes to education, I think that there should be opportunity for all children to be educated and to be able to get a quality education. When you get to the basic level of our education, there are some of the public schools where the children come out of basic education and are not functionally able to read or do simple arithmetic. And so that is one of the missions that we have to engage in, to make sure that every child that is coming out of basic education is able to do basic arithmetic and be able to read and write. And so our constitution says that there should be free, compulsory, universal basic education. And so if I had extra resources, I'll make sure that the public schools in Ghana are better in quality, they have the right teachers, so that every child that is coming out of there is able to do basic arithmetic and to be able to read and to be able to write. Because once you get that level of education wrong, then nothing else works. A secondary school teacher was telling me that some of the quality of students they're getting from the basic school, they can't do anything with, because they can't even understand the concepts that you're teaching them, because they can't read, they can't write, they can't do basic like arithmetic. So we need to make sure that our educational system is put in the right frame, from basic through secondary to tertiary, and also make sure that there's a plug-in for those who want to go on the technical track, because the economies are changing. And as the economies change, the demand for skilled manpower changes. They are no longer looking for us who speak long grammar and can speak eloquently on philosophy and all those kinds of things. They're looking for technicians, they're looking for plumbers, they're looking for welders. So how are we structuring our educational system so that some of these young people are going into the technical and vocational track, so that the kind of manpower that our economies need to be able to continue to progress are available to them? So that's one side of the coin. The other side is, you can't develop a country without basic social and economic infrastructure. The roads must be good so that you can move goods and passengers and people across the length and breadth of your country. That alone, fixing the roads and making it possible for people to move easily across your country, can add up to 5% of GDP. You must provide them with electricity. How are we going to catch up with the developed countries if we don't even have the power to be able to produce simple products? And so one, you need to extend power across the country. And so that was one of my priorities. We extended power across the length and breadth of Ghana. And so Ghana today is one of the countries in Africa with the highest access to electricity. We have 86% of our people have access to electric power. And 76% of our people have access to clean drinking water. When we came into office in 2009, that figure was 58%. By the time I left office, 76% of our people had access to clean drinking water. we came with a project to build a hospital in every district of our country, because we didn't want anybody to travel more than 20 kilometers to a first-class health facility. And so we started to build hospitals all across the districts. We started to build secondary schools to improve access to secondary education. We started to expand our ports, because our port was built in 1960 by President Nkrumah. And since 1960, there had been expansions to the old port, but the volumes that we were beginning to receive far exceeded the port. And so we decided to build a new port, which is currently under construction, that will increase the volume of goods that can be handled 5 times what the old port was. We had an old terminal, that's the terminal Osofia visited. That is not even the new terminal, that's Terminal 2. We refurbished it just to put it in a good condition for our passengers for the meantime while we built the new terminal. The new terminal is operational now, and it can handle up to 5 million passengers a year. Ghana handles about 2.2 million passengers, so you can see how much redundancy we have. It will take another 10 years for us to probably hit 5 million passengers. We extended water, small town water systems all over the country. And I think that putting in the social and economic infrastructure is important. People, when I was campaigning in 2016, people said we don't eat roads, we don't eat hospitals, we don't eat airports, we want the money in our pockets. But of course, that is base politicking, because if you invest in infrastructure, you create jobs. We created 500,000, 500,000 jobs in the construction industry alone because of the public works program that we're rolling out. And so yes, we're putting money in people's pockets because masons were working, steel benders were working, carpenters were working, tilers were working, all kinds of people, electricians, plumbers, everybody was working. Even the women who go to the construction site and sell food to the workers, at the end of the day, take money back home to feed people. And so if you do infrastructure, it is putting money in people's pocket, although they don't realize where that money is coming from. But no government will ever be able to take money and give to you to put in your pocket for no work done, and it will change your life. You will spend it and that's it. But investing in public works and infrastructure is one of the ways of putting money legitimately into your people's pockets that is sustainable and that will bring a meaningful change in their lives.
Mr. President, we've seen a trend in elections, particularly here in Nigeria, whereby money is such a major issue, not just campaign finance, people selling their votes, and that has implications for the integrity of the electoral process. What should African leaders do, and what role can civil society play to make sure that we downplay money as a tool for determining the electoral outcomes?
I talked about that in the lecture I gave at the University of Oxford, and that is that people believe that, not that people believe that, it is justified that there's something we call the democracy dividend. People believe that casting their votes must be proportional to an improvement in their existence. And so every 4 years you call them out to vote, they go and vote. And his hospital is still as bad. He doesn't have good roads, he has no clean water, he has no money, he has no job. And so after voting twice, make sure that the democratic dividend reflects tangibly in the improvement in people's lives. People must see that when I'm sick, I have a new hospital to go to and there's a doctor to attend to me. People must see that my child won't die before they are 5 years because of preventable childhood diseases. People must see that when I'm going to the big town, the road I drive on lets me get there in 1 hour instead of 5 hours. People must see that they have access to clean drinking water. People must see that their lives are improving because they are making the right choices in going out to vote. But unfortunately, our countries are growing, but how we distribute the growth is unequal. And so a lot of vulnerable people are not benefiting from the democracy that we are implementing. And so now they say that, why do I have to go and vote? I won't go and vote because however many times I vote, it's not going to make a difference in my life. And so when a person gets to that stage, then the only motivation for him to go and vote is that you give him money to go and vote. And so that is how it translates into them saying that, I'm selling my votes, I want you to give me money before I go and vote. Because if there's not going to be sustainable development and improvement in his life, then he will either not go and vote, or he will need a motivation to make him go and vote. And so for us African leaders, we must let the people know that every vote that they cast in that 4 years, their life takes a leap forward. And that is what we must look at. Unfortunately, our economies are growing a bit too slowly. They need to grow faster because our population growth rate is outstripping the growth of our economies. Nigeria in 2050 will be about 300 million people. And so Nigeria's economy should be growing at 10% per annum to be able to keep pace with that population growth. Ghana's population should be growing at about 10% per annum to be able to keep pace with the rate at which our population is growing. And so these are things that we reflect on, and we must be innovative in our thinking. You know, nobody is coming to develop our countries for us. We must leverage our own energies to develop. Nigeria is doing well in terms of financial services. A lot of the investments in Ghana in financial services is Nigerian banks. Access Bank, Zenith Bank, UBA, GT Trust Bank, and that's a good thing. Dangote has a cement plant in Ghana. And we should leverage our capacities across Africa, across borders. Nigeria is a big market. Ghana has a good pharmaceutical industry. We should be able to export pharmaceutical products into Nigeria. And that's why the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is good. That is if we implement it. And I'm encouraging Nigeria to ratify it. You guys are having cold feet. You have a big market, you want to keep it to yourself, but you have nothing to fear from Ghana. How much can Ghana export into your market? You know? And when I was president, I used to talk to President Goodluck. I said, this is your prohibition list. You know, at least exclude your neighbors. But when the prohibition list comes, and Manufacturers Association of Nigeria was behind it, prohibition, no furniture, no wax prints, no this, no that, you know. Ghana is not competition to Nigeria. We're only 29 million people. And I think that both economies will benefit if we open up and we invest in each other's countries. A lot of Nigerians have invested in Ghana, and I like to encourage it. When I was president, I was encouraging Nigerians to come and invest in Ghana because we are one and the same people. Our cultures are the same. We are competing in jollof. Why can't we compete in exporting to each other's markets?
I like that. The jollof competition. Your Excellency, just one more question from me before we take questions from our guests. The celebrant is a journalist. I see in the hall many journalists. And in this information age, in this post-truth age, there's a lot of concern about fake news. And I know you have been a victim once or twice. One journalist claiming that you bought something in wherever. But what will you recommend to address the issue of fake news? Greater responsibility on the part of journalists, media owners, or some kind of control, as we have in some other countries?
Actually, the onus has shifted. It's no longer in the hands of journalists. Actually, journalists in the mainstream today are responsible because you can hold them to account. And so for the mainstream media, the newspapers, the radios, if they say anything libelous, you can sue them in court. The problem with fake news and false news is the new media. Anonymous online portals, once you decide to serve in public office, they can write all kinds of scurrilous things about you. And if you decide to pay attention to that and respond to everything, you get no work done. And so when you are president or you are in public office, all kinds of things will be said about you. And the thing is, once it goes on the World Wide Web, it stays there. And people will read it for generations to come, even though it's absolutely fake. There was a newspaper in Ghana, an online newspaper, that put something out and said that, I've forgotten what they put me at. They said I was the 5th richest person in Ghana. My net worth was $900 million. I wish. And you know, it was just, they said Forbes something Africa. I mean, they just forged some name, and then they put their own idea of how much they thought everybody should be worth. I think I was number 5 or something. And we just said, oh, this is useless. We didn't respond to it. I went to South Africa. I was doing an interview after I left office, and I spoke on various things to do with democratic consolidation. Then somebody calls in and says, yeah, you African leaders, you are worth 900 million. Exactly what that false news story said. I mean, so it's on the web. Somebody has seen it and believes it, you know, and was accusing me of having 900 million. I said, how did you get $900 million, you know? And so I had to correct him and said, well, I wish I had $900 million, but unfortunately, I mean, if you divide it by 1,000, I guess I still would not be worth that much. But that is the hazard of public office. And a lot of the news out there is fake, especially in countries where you have strong partisan divides. The quest for power is very strong. And so the motivation to malign your opponent is there. Today we have what they call troll factories, where they just sit, you have people, maybe 20 people who work in the troll factory, they just sit and manufacture fake news and lies about political opponents. And so you see a lot of things in the media. They said I bought a hotel in Dubai. After I left office, I called the government. I said, let's go to Dubai and find this hotel, let's sell it, and then you can take and give me small so that I can continue to survive. Challenge the government, let's go and look for the hotel. They even brought a picture of the hotel when I was in office. And so it's easy to find. And they said where it was, somewhere in Jebel Ali or something. So I said, let's go look for it, you know. And the government was quiet, because I know from which troll factory that fake news came. So fake news is a reality of our time. It's going to be very difficult to deal with. It is an occupational hazard for people in public office. What we do now is to find a means by which we're able to correct these things. My mistake when I was in government the last time was, I said, ignore it. People, Ghanaians will know that this is not true. But that was my fatal mistake, because they just continued and created a certain perception about one that destroyed one's reputation. And so now we have a team that goes through the reports that come online, and if we see any serious allegation, we respond to it. And so we put something out that says this is not true, so that people know that it is just fake news.
Very good. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Well, we'll take 1 or 2 questions from the audience, and then we'll just wrap it up.
Actually, Nigeria is my second home for 2 reasons. A part of my family comes from here. I mean, in those days, you know, our fathers were polygamous. And so I am one of 19 children. We're 12 boys and the rest are female. And one of my sisters, called Sherry, her mother is Nigerian. She comes from Offa. Her mother comes from Offa in Kwara State. And so I come from Kwara State. In Nigeria, my state is Kwara, and my hometown is Offa. I lived in Nigeria for a while, for almost 3 years. And I lived with my stepmother, that is Sherry's mother, in Offa, and then with Sherry's brother in Kano for a while. And so I've lived in Nigeria before. At that time, my father was in political exile from Ghana. He had been in politics before me. I took after his footsteps. And there had been a change of government and he was being persecuted. So he came into exile. And they can promise heaven. And in this day and age, sometimes those promises sound like music in people's ears. But when you are handling the economy, and you know what the economy can do and what it can't do, you don't have the same leverage to make reckless promises. And so my opponent said he will build a factory in every district of Ghana. He will build a dam in every village of Ghana. Every year he will give every constituency $1 million. Every constituency in Ghana, $1 million. I mean, I could not afford to make those kinds of promises because obviously, I mean, there was a limit to what the economy could do. And so I was measured in what I said I could do to the people. But I mean, there are sometimes when people, you know, believe what they hear. And so despite the fact that we ran a good campaign on our record on infrastructure and what we had done, our people felt convinced that they should give the chance to my opponent to come and build a factory in every district. And sometimes it is good to let people, you know, come to terms with what reality is. Because I've said that if my opponent did not get the opportunity, he would be the best president Ghana never had. Because then, if I had won, people would say, if he had come, there would have been a factory in every district of Ghana today. But today they are faced with the reality. I mean, you can't put a factory in every district. It doesn't even make economic sense. Because you need to look at the value chain. And so you must look, and the value chain might be a cluster of districts. So, for instance, the whole of the northern part of Ghana is a cotton growing area. And so that whole area, you can put a cotton ginnery and let them produce cotton for export. And so you look at the value chains. Factories do not align with political districts. Factories align with location of industries and value chains. But at that time, who were you to explain to people what, you know, you thought that, you know, didn't make any sense? It made sense to them. And so we got voted out. And of course, the people have experienced 2.5 years so far. There's still nearly 18 months to go. Maybe a miracle might produce those factories and those dams and all that. But I'm running for office, and certainly I will run on my track record as president, and my opponent will also run on his track record, and the people of Ghana will make a choice.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Just before we bring this to a close, one final question. The celebrant, who is he to you? Would you like to say a few words about him in front of this audience, just for the record?
Indeed, I would have refused to leave this stage without saying something about Dele Momodu. Dele is a special friend to me. Indeed, I call him a brother, a younger brother. I'm 1 year older than him. And if I should say something about Dele, Dele is a loyal friend. If you are his friend, he will never ever let you down. I had known him at a distance. When he came into exile in Ghana, he tried to set up some businesses. He set up a restaurant. I don't know what happened to his restaurant. I never ate there anyway because he didn't invite me. But I knew he had a restaurant in West Airport. And then he was running his magazine and doing several other things. And so I used to meet him at functions and other places, but we never really became close. It was, I think, when President Buhari visited Ghana, you know, I wanted to invite some of the Nigerian community to meet the president. So I invited Dele to come and join us to receive the president at the airport. And so he came and we met the president. And then after that, we met from time to time. And when I started running for office, he was a firm believer because he had seen at first hand the work I had done in Ghana. And so he started to write articles and support me. And we became very good friends ever since. You know a true friend in adversity, not in good times. We became friends when I was president. I became closer to him. After I lost, many people just abandoned ship. You become very lonely. I mean, no more visitors to your house. Before you have all kinds of people standing outside. But Dele was one of the friends who was there for me. After I lost on the election of 7th December, the handover was supposed to be on 7th January. And so there was about a month where we were in the transition period. And I'm a person who's used to working, and so suddenly, you know, you were just in transition and not as busy, and then you are now coming to terms with the fact that you have lost the election. And so Dele came and said, look, don't sit here and just, you know, mourn about having lost the election. Let's go to Nigeria. And so he invited me over. I attended his ovation ceremony. He kept me here, took me to dinners, lunches, met with friends, you know, just to lift my spirit. And since then, he's been there for me. So like I said, I love him as a younger brother, not as a friend. We have a very firm friendship. And I mean, if Dele is your friend, you can count on him any day.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That will be all. Thank you very much indeed. Please, a special round of applause for President Mahama. Thank you very much.
Sorry, hold on, Mr. Welcome. There's a young man here. His name is Aramanda Opori. He's the fashion designer, and he has a special presentation for you. I'd like to invite Aramanda and Bobdi to please step up and present to the son of Ofa in Kwara State.
About the man, and this man is still carrying the banner. What His Excellency spoke about Abati'S Mahama, that is a friend that will never leave you, even when there is problems. People say, why did you go to you went to, why what are you doing? I knew what I've seen in the Yadura, and I will continue to be a loyalist. Abati'S Mahama, God bless you and your family.
His Excellency has said I shall allow you to sit down, so please, Nunu Aseyon. For those who speak French.
So, on behalf of myself, my company, Aramanda Couture Limited, I'm going to present this to you, sir.
Thank you.
What they say is $900,000.
Wow. Wow.
Congratulations. There's a Ghanaian song I like, but I don't know what it means. Abwa konkontiba. Something like that. Then I'll be 16 years. I'm gonna be like this. etc. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency, the former and future President of Ghana. Can I have a round of applause for him? Thank you, Aramanda. God bless you. God bless you, sir.
Nice to see you again.
Well, if you've danced to the music of King Sunny Ade, then you're not a Ghanaian anymore, you're a Nigerian. Am I right or right? Princess Toyin Kolade, I see you. Eva! Engineer, thank you very much. The night is fast spent, and President Mahama has said today is Dele's night.